He didn't want to mate with a disabled alien girl, but when he saw her unclothed, Elia's ward had crossed half the galaxy for peace, not for this. He stood inside the wide observation hall of Concord Station, a place built to impress every species that passed through it. Tall crystal walls showed the stars outside, bright and calm, as if the universe itself expected cooperation. Elias did not feel calm. He felt trapped. Across the room, representatives of the Keller Union waited in perfect stillness. They were tall, broad beings, their bodies protected by natural armor that looked like polished stone. Their faces were hard to read, shaped by ridges and crests instead of human expressions. To them, emotion was shown through posture, not words. Between them stood Vela. She was smaller than the other Keller, thinner, her armor uneven. One of her upper limbs was supported by a mechanical brace, smooth and quiet as it moved. She did not stand straight like the others. Her balance was careful, measured. Elias noticed all of this in the first second. He hated that he did. "Envoy Ward," said the Keller speaker, its voice deep and echoing through the hall, "you have been informed of our bonding custom." "Yes," Elias replied. He kept his voice steady. "I have." "Then you understand," the speaker continued, "that the life pairing between you and Vela will seal the alliance between our peoples." Elias took a slow breath. "No," he said. The word fell heavy in the air. The Keller representatives shifted slightly, a sign of disturbance. Vela did not move at all. "I refuse," Elias said, clearer this time. "Humanity cannot accept this arrangement." A low sound passed through the Keller ranks. Not anger yet, but disbelief. "You reject her," the speaker said. "I reject the system," Elias answered quickly. "Not her." Never her. But he knew the words did not matter. The Keller did not separate individuals from roles. To them, refusal was always personal. Vela lowered her gaze. Elias saw it, even though she tried to hide it. The speaker stepped forward. "She was chosen because she is suitable." Elias clenched his hands behind his back. "She was chosen because she has no political power," he said, "because no one would defend her." Silence followed. The Keller had not expected that. Elias continued, his voice firm but respectful. "Human alliances are built on consent and equality. What you ask is not diplomacy, it is sacrifice." Vela finally looked up. Her eyes were dark and reflective, almost like glass touched by starlight. There was no anger in them. Only acceptance. That was what hurt the most. The Keller speaker turned slightly toward her. "You were aware of the risk." "I was," Vela said softly. Her voice surprised Elias. It was calm, clear, and steady. Not weak, not broken. "I accept his refusal," she continued. "It changes nothing." Elias frowned. "It should," he said, but Vela did not answer him. She stepped back, returning to the place behind the others as if she had never been part of the discussion at all. The Keller speaker faced Elias again. "Then this negotiation is damaged." "Paused," Elias corrected, "not ended. To refuse a bond is to refuse trust," the speaker replied. "We will remember this." The meeting ended soon after. No threats, no shouting, just cold formality. That worried Elias more than open anger would have. Later that cycle, Elias stood alone by the station's outer ring, watching cargo ships move like slow insects against the stars. His reflection stared back at him in the glass, dark hair, tired eyes, a face that had learned how to hide doubt. He wondered if he had done the right thing. Human command would likely support him, on paper at least, but alliances were fragile and the Keller controlled critical trade routes. One refusal could cost billions of lives someday. Still, the idea of accepting that bond made his stomach twist. He was not a prize. Neither was she. A soft sound behind him made Elias turn. Vela stood a short distance away. She had removed her ceremonial outer cloak, revealing simpler clothing beneath. Without the heavy fabric, her uneven armor was more visible, marked by fine lines and repaired fractures. "I was told you might be here," she said. Elias straightened. I'm sorry if I caused trouble for you. You did, Vela replied calmly, but not in the way you think. She moved closer to the window, careful with each step. Elias noticed how she adjusted her balance without thinking, how practiced the motion was. You spoke against the council, she said. No one does that. Someone should, Elias replied. Vela considered this. Among my people, those who are incomplete do not receive defenders. Elias shook his head. You're not incomplete. She looked at him then, truly looked at him. That is not for you to decide. Her words were not harsh, just honest. They stood in silence for a moment, watching a transport ship jump into hyperspace, light bending around it like water. You refused because of me, Vela said. I refused because no one should be traded like that, Elias answered, especially someone who didn't ask for it. Vela was quiet for a long time. I did ask, she said finally, not because I wanted the bond, but because my existence already burdens my people. This was useful. Elias felt something tighten in his chest. You think your life is a burden. My body failed to grow correctly, she replied. I cannot serve in combat, I cannot lead ritual hunts, I cannot produce strong offspring. She said these things as if listing facts, not wounds. In Keller society, she continued, worth is visible, strength is seen. Mine is not. Elias thought of Earth, of people who were told they were less because they did not fit a shape, a role, a standard. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself over that idea. I don't believe that, he said, and neither does my species. Vela tilted her head slightly. Your species is strange. Elias smiled faintly. That's what everyone says. She turned back to the stars. The council will not forget your refusal. They may test you. Good, Elias said. So will we. Vela studied him for a moment longer, then nodded once. I hope, she said, that your people truly believe what you say. So do I, Elias replied. As she walked away, Elias realized something important. He had not refused the bond because she was disabled. He had refused because the galaxy was wrong. And somehow he knew this was only the beginning. After the meeting, Concord Station did not feel the same to Elias Ward. The lights were still bright. The halls were still clean and wide. Ships still came and went, carrying diplomats, soldiers, and traders from dozens of worlds. But something invisible had changed. People avoided him, not openly, not rudely, just enough that he noticed. Keller guards stood straighter when he passed, their armored forms silent and watchful. Other species whispered behind polite smiles. Word traveled fast on a neutral station, and everyone knew one thing now. The human envoy had refused a bond. Elias walked through the central ring toward the human embassy wing. His steps echoed softly on the metal floor. He felt the familiar pressure of responsibility settling on his shoulders, heavy and cold. Human Command had sent a short message earlier. Decision noted. Further review pending. Maintain position. That was all. No praise, no warning, just waiting. Waiting was never good. Vela did not appear for 2 full station cycles. Elias told himself not to look for her. He failed. He asked station staff if she was well. They gave careful answers. She was alive. She was present. She was not scheduled for diplomatic activity, which meant she had been set aside. That angered him more than the council's reaction. On the 3rd cycle, the station alarm sounded, not loud enough to panic, but serious enough to demand attention. Elias was in the human briefing chamber when the lights shifted from white to amber. A comm station voice spoke. Alert! Structural failure detected in lower habitat ring. All non-essential personnel remain in assigned sectors. The words lower habitat ring made Elias freeze. That section housed mixed species workers, maintenance crews, support staff, and Vela. He was already moving before he realized it. Human security tried to stop him at the checkpoint. Envoy, that sector is restricted, one officer said. Radiation leak reported. Then send med teams, Elias snapped, and get me clearance. You don't have. I don't care, Elias said. I'm going. The officer hesitated, then stepped aside. Elias ran. The lower ring was dim, emergency lights flashing slowly. The air smelled sharp, metallic. Several Keller engineers stood at a sealed bulkhead, their thick armor protecting them from the worst of the radiation. But they were not going inside. The access tunnel collapsed, one of them said. Exposure levels are unstable. What about the workers trapped inside? Elias demanded. There are losses, the engineer replied calmly. This is acceptable. Elias stared at them in disbelief. Where is Vela? He asked. The engineer turned slightly. Inside. Before anyone could stop him, Elias rushed toward the tunnel. A strong arm caught him. Human, a Keller guard said, you will die. Let go, Elias shouted. She's in there, the guard hesitated. Then a quiet voice came from behind them. Release him. Vela stood near the edge of the light. She wore no armor cloak, only her brace and basic work gear. Her expression was focused, not afraid. I can survive longer than they can, she said, nodding toward the guards. My internal structure absorbs radiation differently. The guards looked uncertain. Elias turned to her. You shouldn't go in there. I already have, Vela replied. Only then did Elias notice the faint glow beneath her skin, soft lines of light tracing patterns along her arms and neck. Not dangerous, controlled. Why didn't you tell anyone? He asked. They would have stopped me, she said, like they tried to stop you. She stepped closer to the sealed door. There are 5 workers trapped, 2 are injured, 1 is unconscious. Elias swallowed. How do you know? I can hear their neural signals, Vela answered, weak but present. The Keller engineers exchanged looks. That is not possible, one said. Vela ignored him. I will guide them out, she continued. But the door controls are damaged. I need manual override from this side. Elias stepped forward. Tell me what to do, she looked at him, surprised. You would expose yourself. Yes, Elias said. I'm human, we're good at surviving bad ideas. For the first time, Vela almost smiled. Together they worked. Elias forced open the emergency panel, his hands shaking as radiation warnings flashed across the display. Vela spoke calmly, directing him, counting seconds, adjusting power flow. Inside the tunnel, shadowy figures moved slowly toward the light. One collapsed. Vela reacted instantly, stepping forward, lifting the injured worker with careful strength. Her movements were not fast, but they were precise. By the time station med teams arrived, all 5 workers were alive. Elias collapsed to one knee, coughing, his head spinning. Vela steadied him. Your tolerance is lower than expected, she observed. He laughed weakly. You should see us on a bad day. Later, in the medical wing, Elias lay on a recovery bed, watching the ceiling lights drift slowly. Vela stood nearby, her skin dim again, the glow faded. The station council arrived soon after. They did not thank her, they questioned her. Why did you act without authorization? One counselor asked. Because lives were at risk, Vela replied. You violated protocol. I followed necessity. The council turned to Elias. You encouraged this. I supported it, Elias said. There's a difference. The counselor's voice hardened. You risked diplomatic balance. Elias sat up despite the pain. And you risked 5 lives for protocol. Remember that when you judge us. Silence followed. Finally, the council dismissed them both. Outside the chamber, Vela stopped walking. You have made yourself a problem, she said quietly. Elias nodded. That's kind of our specialty. She studied him. Among my people today changes nothing. I am still unsuitable. Among mine, Elias replied, today proves something. She looked at him. What? That strength doesn't always look the way people expect. Vela turned toward the observation window, the stars bright beyond the glass. For the first time, she said slowly, I wonder if my people are wrong. Elias stood beside her. The galaxy was watching now. And it would not look away again. The council chamber of Concord Station was never meant to feel small. Its ceiling curved high above, filled with soft light meant to calm every species that entered. Flags of many worlds hung in slow motion, floating in the controlled air. It was a place of balance, order, and tradition. To Vela, it felt like a cage. She stood alone in the center of the chamber, no ceremonial armor, no outer cloak, no protection, only herself. The Keller Council sat in a wide circle, their armored bodies solid and unmoving. Their natural plates reflected the chamber light like polished stone. To them, stillness was authority. Elias stood at the edge of the room, flanked by human security. He was not allowed closer. He had argued against that rule. He lost. "Vela of the Third Clutch," the lead counselor said, "you are summoned to account for repeated disruption of protocol." Vela lowered her head slightly. "I acknowledge the summons." "You acted without command during the habitat failure," the counselor continued. "You exposed yourself, you exposed others." "I prevented deaths," Vela replied. "That is not the question," another counselor said. "You acted outside your role." Vela's fingers tightened at her side. "My role," she said calmly, "has never been clearly defined." A ripple passed through the council, discomfort. The lead counselor leaned forward. "Your existence has been tolerated because it was useful. You offered yourself for bonding. You accepted limitation. Now you challenge order." Elias felt anger rise in his chest, sharp and hot. Vela did not raise her voice. "I challenged nothing," she said. "I only acted." "Your actions suggest misplaced confidence," the counselor replied. "You are incomplete, your body is unstable, your form lacks strength." Vela lifted her head. "Then allow me to demonstrate," she said. Silence followed. The counselors shifted, confused. "Demonstrate what?" one asked. "What you refuse to see," Vela answered. She reached for the clasp at her shoulder. Elias took a step forward. "Vela," she did not look at him. Slowly, carefully, she removed the final layer of her protective gear. There was no drama in the motion, no ceremony, just truth. Her body was not what the Keller idealized. The natural armor was thin in places, absent in others. Fine lines of healed fractures crossed her torso. Along her sides and back, faint luminous patterns glowed softly beneath her skin like quiet stars. Not damage, adaptation. The chamber grew very still. "This is what you call weakness," Vela said. Some counselors looked away, others stared. "My outer armor failed to grow correctly," she continued. "So my body compensated. My nervous system developed greater density. My internal support structures strengthened." She raised her braced limb. "This limb is slower," she said, "but it can bear weight beyond standard tolerance." She stepped forward, her movements careful but controlled. "I feel pain differently," Vela said. "I endure radiation, pressure, neural stress. I can survive environments that kill standard Keller soldiers." The lead counselor's voice hardened. "You are still unsuitable." "Because I do not look strong," Vela replied. She turned slowly, allowing them to see her fully. "You value armor," she said. "I value function." The words hung in the air. Elias realized then that this was not about her body. It never had been. It was about fear. The council feared what did not fit their system. One counselor stood. "You shame us with this display." "No," Vela replied quietly. "I reveal you." A murmur spread through the chamber. Anger, shock, uncertainty. The lead counselor struck the floor with his staff. "Enough. Vela of the Third Clutch, you are hereby stripped of diplomatic consideration. You will be reassigned to low-function service." Exile without saying the word. Elias moved before he could stop himself. "No," he said loudly. Every eye turned to him. Human security stiffened, ready to restrain him if needed. Elias stepped into the open space. "You don't get to do that," he said. The counselor's voice dropped dangerously low. "You speak out of turn, human." "I speak as a representative of a species that survived because we stopped throwing people away," Elias replied. The council scoffed. "You are soft," one said. "You protect weakness." Elias shook his head. "You mistake weakness for difference." He looked around the chamber. "On my world," he continued, "people born broken built cities. Those wounded in war became leaders. Those judged useless changed history." The counselor leaned back. Stories. Survival, Elias said. He turned to Vela. You didn't fail, he said clearly. Your society failed you. The chamber erupted in noise. This is unacceptable. Silence fell like a blade. The council stared at him. Asylum, the lead counselor repeated slowly. You would claim her as your responsibility. Yes, Elias said. As a person, not a tool. The counselor's posture stiffened. If you do this, relations will suffer. Elias did not hesitate. Then let them suffer. Vela turned to him, shock clear on her face. You would risk alliance, she said softly. Yes, Elias replied, because some things matter more. The council withdrew to deliberate. Minutes passed, then longer. Elias stood beside Vela, close but not touching. He could feel the faint warmth from her adaptive system, steady and calm. You did not need to do this, Vela said. Yes, I did, Elias replied. So did they. The council returned. The lead counselor spoke, his tone cold. The Keller Union rejects the asylum request. Elias' heart dropped. However, the counselor continued, we will allow an alternative. Vela looked up. A trial, the counselor said. A demonstration of worth by Keller standards. Elias frowned. You just heard her. She may choose, the counselor interrupted, or accept exile. The chamber went quiet again. All eyes turned to Vela. She closed her eyes. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she opened them. I will face your trial, she said. Elias turned to her sharply. Vela. I must, she said calmly. Not for them. She looked at him. For myself. The council nodded. Then it is decided. As the chamber cleared, Elias walked beside her. You don't have to prove anything, he said. Vela shook her head. I do, just not the way they expect. Outside the chamber, the stars burned bright and distant. And for the first time in her life, Vela felt something new. Not shame, not acceptance, but purpose. The trial took place in the old arena. It was not meant for diplomacy. It was meant for judgment. The arena rested deep inside Concord Station, built long ago when disputes were settled by display of strength rather than words. The floor was dark metal, scarred by time. The walls rose high and curved inward, forcing attention toward the center. Vela stood alone at the edge of the arena. Across from her waited the trial structure. It was not a creature. It was worse. A Keller endurance construct, designed to test armor strength, neural control, pain tolerance, and mental focus at the same time. Even trained Keller warriors rarely completed it fully. Many failed halfway, some never recovered. The council watched from above, silent, expectant. Elias stood behind the human delegation, fists clenched so tightly his hands hurt. He had argued against this trial. He had demanded alternatives. The council had refused. This is their way, one human advisor whispered. If she wins, they cannot deny her. If she loses, Elias replied quietly, they will erase her. The trial horn sounded. Vela stepped forward. The construct activated immediately. The floor shifted beneath her feet, changing angles without warning. Pressure fields pressed against her body, testing balance. Light flashed, sound pulsed, designed to overload the senses. Vela moved slowly, carefully. She did not rush. The council frowned. Speed was valued, force was admired, control was ignored. The first neural pulse struck her body, meant to disrupt internal systems. Vela gasped, but did not fall. Her adaptive nervous system reacted, redirecting the overload inward, absorbing it instead of fighting it. The faint glow beneath her skin brightened, steady and contained. Elias leaned forward. She's not resisting, he whispered. She's adapting. The second phase began. Weight pressed down from above, increasing with each step. The pressure was meant to crack armor, to force submission. Vela's movement slowed further. Every step looked painful, but she kept moving. The arena sensors showed her internal systems shifting, reinforcing weaker points, redistributing strain. Her body was not failing. It was learning. A counselor shifted uncomfortably. This is inefficient. Another replied, but effective. The third phase began without pause. Memory assault. The construct projected neural echoes, fear patterns, isolation signals, rejection responses. The kind designed to break morale. Vela stopped. Her hands trembled. Elia's heart pounded. He knew this part. He had seen that look in her eyes before. The look of someone who had spent their entire life being told they were wrong just for existing. The echoes intensified. Images formed in the air, symbolic, not literal. A lone figure standing apart, doors closing, backs turning away. The arena waited for her to kneel. Instead, Vela lifted her head. Slowly she spoke. "I am still here." Her voice echoed through the arena. "I survived you," she said, not to the construct, but to the memories. "All of you." The neural assault weakened. The glow beneath her skin flared brighter, not uncontrolled, but focused. The construct recalibrated. Final phase. Maximum output. The pressure fields, neural pulses, and sensory overload combined into a single wave meant to force collapse. Vela staggered, fell to one knee. Elias took a step forward before anyone could stop him. "Vela," he shouted. She looked up and smiled, not with joy, with certainty. She pushed herself upright. Every system in her body worked together, not perfectly, but together. The construct strained, unable to adjust fast enough. With one final step, Vela crossed the marked line at the center of the arena. The construct powered down. Silence followed. Then the arena lights shifted from red to white. Trial complete. For several long seconds, no one spoke. The council stared. The data screens showed the truth clearly. Vela had not just passed, she had exceeded parameters. She did not meet traditional standards, one counselor said slowly. "No," another replied. "She redefined them." Vela stood breathing hard, supported by her brace but unbroken. The lead counselor rose. "Vela of the third clutch," he said, "by the measure of our laws you have demonstrated worth." Elias exhaled shakily. "But," the counselor continued, "your form challenges our traditions." Vela met his gaze. "So did your arena," she said calmly, "and yet it still stands." A ripple of quiet passed through the chamber. The counselor paused. Then something changed. "You are no longer classified as incomplete," he said. "Your designation will be revised." Vela closed her eyes, not in relief, in release. The council turned toward Elias. "Human envoy," the lead counselor said. "Your species intervened where custom did not invite it." Elias straightened. "Yes." "And yet," the counselor continued, "your values exposed a flaw in our judgment." Elias said nothing. "Humanity will be granted expanded diplomatic standing," the counselor said, "not because you are strong, but because you protect what others discard." Whispers spread across the chamber. The decision would echo far beyond the station. Later, on the observation deck, Vela stood beside the glass, watching stars drift past like distant fires. Elias joined her. "You did it," he said softly. "We did it," she corrected. He smiled. "Fair." She was quiet for a moment. "My people will struggle with this," she said. "Change is uncomfortable." "Trust me," Elias replied. "We know." She turned toward him. "You never saw me as broken," she said. "Why?" Elias thought for a moment. "Because humans learn the hard way," he said. "That survival isn't about perfection, it's about adaptation and refusing to abandon each other." Vela looked back at the stars. "Then your species is dangerous," she said. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous?" "Yes," she replied. "To injustice," he laughed softly. "I like that reputation." A message came through Elias' communicator, Human Command. "Alliance status updated. Proceed as primary envoy." "Well done." Elias closed the message. The galaxy would remember this moment, not because humanity won a war. Not because they showed force, but because they stood between a system and a person and said no. Vela stood taller now, not because her body had changed, but because the universe had. And somewhere among the stars, a quiet truth spread. Humans are the ones who see value where others see failure.